Everyone. I'm going to be sort of running the beginning of this meeting. So welcome. My name is Ky. I am the Watershed Program Assistant in Alpine Watershed Group. This is my dog Hudson. He was going to be whining at the door if he didn't come in, so he'll be joining us today. I know that in the past, AWG has done a sort of potluck at the beginning of the year to have community members around and share thoughts and ideas. And for obvious reasons, we can't do that this year, but I would feel remiss if I didn't get to be part of a community gathering of some sort. So thank you all for being here and sharing your time. One of the first items of business that I wanted to make sure we covered that will be especially useful when we get to the discussion is when you log onto Zoom, it gives you a default name, which is sometimes just an email address. And I know a lot of you have already renamed yourself, but if you haven't done that and could, what you do, you put your mouse over your little block where your face is, and in the top right corner, there should be 3 dots. And if you click on those, there should be an option to rename. So if you can do that, first, last name, your affiliation, if you think it's pertinent, would be great. I'm gonna help us a lot, again, when we get to the discussion. On that note, also, if you have any technical difficulties, obviously if technical difficulties logging on, I have my email up. You wouldn't be hearing me say that right now. But if something happens during the meeting, you can email Mo. On her email, I put it in the chat box, and it's awg.mo.loden, LODEN@gmail.com. So I wanted to get to that first. On that note, also feel free to use the chat box throughout this meeting. It's supposed to be heavy on discussion, and so if you have questions or responses, feel free to use that, and Kimra, Mo, and I will all be keeping an eye on the chat box throughout the duration. So I think that was kind of the first order of business. I wanted to do a quick overview of the agenda before we move too far into the meeting. So basically, I'm going to do a quick presentation on sort of why we're gathered, what we hope to get out of this meeting. After that, we'll go into the short film, which is called Ranching in the New Normal, and I'll give a really brief introduction on that. And then after that, we'll have a discussion. Oh, also, while the short film is playing, if you haven't taken the survey, I put the survey link in the chat box as well. So if you want to take that time and take the survey, that would be really helpful. So we have a written record of thoughts, ideas, responses. Yeah, so after the film and that opportunity to take the survey, we'll go into a discussion. Kimber will lead quick self-introductions of everybody, where everyone will say their name, their affiliation, and then if you want an area of watershed health that you would like to see improved. And then we'll go into an open discussion, and that will take us to the end of the meeting.
What are you playing?
So yeah, we'll go ahead and get started on that. And I've already shared the survey, so to access that again, link in the chat box. So if you can't find that, you can either email Mo, again, awg.mo.loden@gmail, or go to our website, and it's just on the right column there, really easy to find. So that's where the survey is. I'll remind everyone of that before we start the film. But if anyone has questions before I get going on the agenda or anything, feel free to ask them now while I am getting ready to share my screen. Okay, where are we? Okay, questions? I'll go ahead and share. All right, is everybody seeing looking forward? Nod. Okay, good. It's like most of you are muted, so yeah, that's not super helpful. Thank you. All right, so looking forward. So this will be an overview of AWG project concepts development, the what, the who, the how, and the why. So getting right into it. So we'll start with the what. In 2019, Alpine Watershed Group was awarded a U.S. Bureau of Reclamation WaterSMART grant, SMART standing for Sustain and Manage America's Resources for Tomorrow. So USBR says these grants contribute to their overall water management strategy by providing funding to watershed groups to encourage diverse stakeholders to form local solutions to address their water management needs. That's their blurb that they give on it. In our case, two of our goals with our WaterSMART grant were to, one, expand our outreach as a watershed group, and two, pursue a watershed restoration plan for Alpine County watersheds. So this is sort of the what of today's meeting. The who of today's meeting is, first of all, everyone who is logged on or who has taken the survey, or both, I guess. So that's community members, stakeholders, experts giving their thoughts, ideas, knowledge on what is happening and what we'd like to see happen in our watersheds. So beyond this meeting and our regular AWG outreach, which includes, other watershed group meetings, meetings with partners, our river monitoring volunteer program, social media, and other outreach materials, we have a few other means of making sure that we include a broad array of voices in the development of this watershed restoration plan. And we're in the process of thoroughly collecting. So one of the first things that we're doing is collecting and cataloging reports, plans, and projects that are being done in Alpine County watersheds, with the idea being to incorporate the voices of experts and agencies by collecting those reports. And then forthcoming is the development of a projects committee that will include voices from different watershed interests, community members, and again, experts that will convene to analyze and develop the watershed restoration plan, and also help determine community priorities. And then finally, part of the purpose of this meeting is to ask the question, who is missing from our virtual watershed group table? So this is sort of the who of what we are doing today. The how of what we are doing today, that's a little screenshot of the survey. Some of you hopefully have seen it, and some of you hopefully are about to see it. The how is fairly straightforward, and if you're here, you're already a big part of the how. So from this meeting and the survey, we're going to begin to get a feel for community priorities in terms of watershed health, meaning which areas of our local environment do we think are the most degraded, need the most help, and also which projects to address those areas moving forward will we prioritize. As part of that, we're going to conduct a gap analysis asking what pieces of core data are we missing. And this will all be done with the help of the projects committee. So finally, moving to the last slide here, the why. Why are we doing this? Besides answering our USBR WaterSMART grant, the idea is that by June of this year, we will have a working document that lays out community priorities and ideas that we'll be able to use to find funding sources and future partners and basically give us a roadmap for moving forward. So that was super quick presentation. And with all that being said, are there any questions on this? And let me go ahead and open the chat box. While we're gearing up and asking questions or not asking questions as it seems, I'm going to pull up that
film. Do you want us to raise our hand? Is that what we're supposed to do?
Thank you. I should have said that. Raising your hand works. I'm in full screen mode at the moment, so I'll get out of it. So raising your hand works, or the chat box works, either one. But raising your hand works if you have a question right now. Absolutely.
All right. I have a question.
Yes, Brenda.
Sorry, I was trying to find my little hand raise thing in there, but it was easier just to do this. So my question is, have you guys seen other people's watershed restoration plans that that USBR has, from USBR projects in the past? And are you kind of creating a template, or is this going to be like a completely new document, that type of thing? I'm just curious if you're using any sort of template.
Yeah, great question. So USBR has published and given us access to, I think, 8 or 9 other reports that people have submitted. And some of them, there's some similarities that run through all of them that we're including in ours, that there is a sort of a vague template that I think we've created through reading through those reports. There's some things, though, that all the reports leave out that I think we're adding. And so to answer your question, it's not really a template that we're creating for ourselves or for other groups. We're more following the general template that USBR has given through those examples, and then adding things that are specific to us. For example, Most of the reports are focused on one watershed, and here we're focused on 5. And so our report differs slightly. It's not exactly a template that's easy to follow as a single watershed, but it's, yeah, there are common veins that run through all of them. So, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, any other questions? All right, if there are no other questions, I'm gonna go ahead and move us into the film portion. Before I do that, just a quick reminder that survey link is in the chat box on the right. It's also on our website. If you could take that, it takes about 5 to 10 minutes. Should be about the amount of time that it'll take us to watch this film. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen for the film. I'll make sure I'm in full screen first. Okay. All right. Okay, can everybody see that title screen there? No, thank you. So before I push play, here's the introduction that American Rivers has on the film that I wanted to read before we watched it. They say, working lands and healthy rivers support us all. The land and water support us now, but belong to the next generation of people and wildlife. The people who most understand this work Colorado's land and water every day. Working land operations, like ranches, survive by how they relate to land and water. These operations, in turn, provide vast open spaces for birds, wildlife, and enjoyment. The dry year of 2018 pushed working lands and rivers to the brink across Colorado and the Colorado River Basin. Many Colorado ranchers, ranching families and communities and wildlife that rely on healthy flowing rivers were tried as some rivers completely dried up. This film is a collaborative project between Audubon Rockies and American Rivers that tells the water story of 3 Colorado ranches as they adapt to increasingly drier conditions and the hope they have for their land and water legacy. All right, here we go. And go ahead and turn your volume all the way up if you haven't.
You know, we're kind of getting to the point where we ought to think about moving these cows, I think. They were kind of hauling at me this morning, and yeah, we can kind of gather up in that little meadow there, and if the gates, one of us go ahead and open the gate once we get there. So, I guess the thing that I love about this life is that when I get up in the morning and go out, I can look for different things. You know, I've been here since before I was born. My grandfather homesteaded half a mile from where we sat right here in 1897, so I have roots here that I feel, but this is a new field, a new landscape every time I go out there.
When you make your living directly from a piece of land and from your relationship with everything that that land is doing and everything that those animals are doing, you're in it good or bad. And in fact, you're in it even more deeply on the days when it's 30 below and the wind is blowing. You know, the San Luis Valley is a place that the average precipitation in a given year is 7 inches. That comes as snow. We didn't get 7 inches of snow this year. And in fact, during the winter, I think 22 to 35% of the average snowpack fell. You know, our weather has definitely been drier. It was much warmer this year as well. So again, I think we have a tendency to focus on how dry is it. Not only was it infinitely drier, but what little fell had more trouble sticking around for a number of factors. And then we kept sort of crossing our fingers that we'd get those wet spring snows, and we didn't get those either.
On a good year, we wouldn't be taking this bunch of little calves across that river very easy. Right now, we can walk across it anywhere.
There's enough water coming down this ditch to set 3 or 4 tarps. So you want to set many tarps so you can spread that water out and get it going to many places you can. On a normal year, I think that if you were up here on May 21st or 22nd, whatever day it is, you'd see probably between 50 and 100 CFS going on down the creek right now. And for right now to be at, you know, that's probably about 5 to 6 CFS. You know, a lot of times March is our heaviest snow month, but we were certainly, you know, hoping and praying we'd get some in March, but just didn't get anything to speak of. So it's pretty devastating to see it look that low this early in May.
Whether we're having to buy extra hay because there's no grass, or we're selling off our herd to reduce our numbers. I mean, those are direct impacts to our pocket. And, you know, if you have a year or two in a row of those, you're really in dire straits.
It's less about like the concept of warming him up, so to speak. It's more just, just working on getting his feet in the right place and his mind in the right place. Like that cowboy concept of like you hop on and you lope off. Like that's bullshit. That's not really how that works. So yeah, I mean, sometimes Mother Nature deals you a hard hand and you've got to make hard decisions and decide what's your best option for today and your best option for tomorrow. So because of the dry year, the change that we are making is less animals or for shorter periods of time. Yeah, it's a dry year, and so we are actively destocking, period. That's just our reality, you know?
I don't know that people have consciously started to alter some of their practices in order to increase their soil's capacity to hold water. And that ultimately, I think, is going to be one of the most important things we in the agricultural community can do and actually demonstrate to urban communities.
Well, here's another place where we've got a lot of things going on. So this grass stand here, and along with those cottonwood trees, has a lot of litter on the ground. So underneath this stand of grass is about 2/3 more biomass underground than there is above ground. And so what you see above ground is the stuff that we think about all the time, but all those roots and all that underground is where the real carbon is stored and where the life that's in the soil lives, and all that massive roots and insect tunnels and all the different things that are in there. Trying to kind of understand how they work and their relationship between them and the plants is then kind of what's left over from that is where we try to fit in and make our living and be a part of this without doing anything but maybe improving it.
What we try to do with grazing is disturb it and rest, disturb it and rest. And so you've got to manage your rest time as much as your disturbance time. And so in a year like this where it's dry, your plants are a little bit more weak or stressed more than normal, then you're going to have a longer rest time because it's going to take longer for it to recover. Cattle are an amazing tool for the land, and then it's crazy what they're capable of doing. And so although it's a dry year, you know, you look around and you're like, damn, things still look good, you know.
Having experienced 2002, having lived through that once, I think it more prepared me for this one because, you know, we started thinking ahead a lot earlier about how to manage it. But it certainly really makes you appreciate the moisture when you get it and the snowpack throughout the winter and how important it is to use it wisely. It's a tough life, and you know, I think it's not for everybody. You know, there's lots of different, you know, challenges and trials and tribulations you got to go through, and you got to, you know, appreciate the good.
We've lost our sound.
We're building an alternative to what is, I guess, people would like to call traditional, but I think is really conventional agriculture. You know, we're in the beginning of a very serious drought, and we have more grass than we can use because over a long period of time we've built that relationship with that soil and with these grasslands so that they're here for us when we need them. And the healthier we are, the more we can actually let go downstream because we don't need to take so much. If we can focus on positive things that are going on out here in the soil and in the land, and then start to build on that and create positive things to offset all these negative things, I fully feel like we can turn this thing around.
All right. All right. Well, I really like that film. I think it's true that we might have some really dry years in the very near future, and we don't necessarily need to change our ways of life to address them, but we do have to be cognizant of the future. And I thought that tied in really well with the idea of planning for the future, making, you know, project ideas as a community. So I hope some of you had the opportunity to take the survey. If you haven't finished, please continue to finish or finish afterward, whatever suits you best. And now we're ahead of schedule, but we're going to go ahead and move into our discussion section, which is great. More time for discussion. Awesome. And so I'm going to hand it over to Kimra.
Hey everyone. One of the things we have really missed since we went virtual last March is having that roundtable where we all introduce ourselves and we know who else is here. So Ky asked me, since I know some of you and your names a little better, to try to orchestrate having you introduce yourself with your name, your affiliation, which could be an organization, a professional affiliation, community member is a very valid affiliation here. And then if you'd like to state one area of watershed health that you would like to see improved, no pressure, but we wanted to give you a chance to say something else. But if you could keep it brief, we'll get through all of the introductions pretty quickly. And how I've seen it work well is I'm going to say the next 3 people who will be introducing themselves in order, and then you can be ready to unmute. So I'll say 3 names, and in that order, you will unmute, say your name, your affiliation, and an area of watershed health if you choose, and then you can remute when you're done. And if you do currently have your picture turned off and you have the bandwidth to turn it on, just at least when you introduce yourself so folks can put a face to your name, that would be fantastic. So we are going to start with Dawn Hittenmiller, Brenda Hunt, and then Bill Summer. And it looks like Dawn might have left the room. So we might, Brenda, you'd be next.
Okay. I'm Brenda Hunt. I'm with the Carson Water Sub-Conservancy District. I'm their watershed program manager. I would like to see...
Was up there.
Oh, sorry. I'd like to see agricultural BMPs and regenerative farming practices.
Bill?
Yeah, hi, I'm Bill Summer. Now I pool boy and dog walker. Before that, I worked for Department of Fish and Wildlife as a senior fisheries biologist for 32 years. And I guess I'm here to help provide ideas and brainstorm projects for stream habitat restoration and provide fisheries benefits. Kind of provided input to the group over several years, and willing to be a resource where I can.
Thank you, Bill. And Dawn, are you and Annie back?
Yeah, we're here. Sorry, I'm not very good with the computer. Anyways, Don Hittenmuller, Alpine Biomass Collaborative, which is basically forest health, and also environmental mowing. We do work on private ranch land for fuel reduction, forest health, and stream restoration.
Thank you. And I think Annie's back in the background there.
Annie?
It's okay.
Okay, she's, for some reason, she's being distant, whatever, I don't know.
Okay, our next 3 will be Lauren Roach, Avery Hellman, and Rich Harvey.
Hi, I'm Lauren Roach with Hanford ARC. We are a restoration contractor. I'm a professional engineer registered in California and Nevada. I refer to myself as a applied riverine engineer. I have been the project manager / construction manager for the 3 phases of work on the West Fork of the Carson River in Hope Valley. So that would be the 2015 original bank stabilization DFW project, the 2016 throat cut management project and inset floodplain that was up off Blue Lakes Road. And then this past year in 2020, we at Hanford, we implemented the bank stabilization. We implemented the inset floodplain or benching right downstream of the bridge on that project, and then some erosion control / installation on the 2015 project. So I very familiar with Hope Valley. I was born and raised in Carson City. I've been in Hope Valley my entire life. And so that stretch of the West Fork of the Carson and Hope Valley is pretty near and dear to my heart. So I've been asked to kind of give my recommendations and thoughts of what we could do on the West Fork of the Carson.
Thank you, Lauren.
I'm Avery, and I'm a landowner down on Carson River Road. And I've been involved in agriculture, ranching, regenerative agriculture in California for about 8 years. And I'm very interested in restoration and have collaborated as a landowner with Point Blue Conservation Science down in Sonoma County for a creek restoration project, and I'm currently working with the NRCS and am funded for a small spring head cut restoration project. So I'm really excited about restoration on working lands and particularly fostering the relationship between ranchers and conservationists, which I think there's a huge potential for, and there's a lot of openness right now culturally where there was not a while ago. So yeah, the video was great. And I guess, yeah, future projects, there's tons of degraded watersheds on private lands, on our land for sure. And I know from what I've heard about the measurements that you guys do that the water quality is certainly impacted by the manure runoff from the pastures. And so it would be great to work on those water quality issues.
Thank you, Avery. Really glad to have you here tonight. Rich Harvey.
Hi, I'm Rich Harvey. I'm the chair of the board of directors of the Alpine Watershed Group and have been for 4 or 5 years at least. I also own some ranch property that is irrigated. And I have concerns, just as Avery mentioned, with runoff, which is the result of flood irrigation. There is very little grant monies that I'm aware of, and the challenges are great to prevent that from going back into the stream, but it's certainly an issue. I'm interested in somehow combining our conservation work with those activities that would benefit the economy, since the Alpine County economy is always on thin edge of of collapse in some ways. But so fish habitat, enhancement of the fishing, working with the ranch communities, and holding back water as for meadow restoration. Are those 3 issues are my main concerns.
Thank you, Rich. Our next 3 are Dan Caffer, Becky DeForest, and Jack Landy.
Hi, happy to see everybody here. My name is Dan Caffer, a longtime member of the Alpine Watershed Group. I'm on the board of directors, retired after 32 years working with the Natural Resource Conservation Service in Eastern California and Western Nevada. And my passion is plants, willows especially, and watershed restoration, using Mother Nature to help expedite the process. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Becky DeForest. I am the executive director with the Alpine County Chamber of Commerce, and I guess I'm here to find out how we as the chamber can promote more responsible recreation, responsible use of our waterways and our watersheds, and what role we can play to help carry out the mission of the group. And I also have a background, my background is in cattle ranching, and so I have a kind of a unique insight to that, and I have interest in seeing if there's any potential and enough agriculture in the area to possibly embark on any agritourism efforts. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jack Landy. I'm the Lake Tahoe Basin Coordinator for US EPA, and also a liaison with the Lahontan Regional Board on the Total Maximum Daily Load Program. So I'm very encouraged to see that there's all this planning going on. I wasn't aware of the WaterSMART grant that you presented on, but that seems like an excellent effort, and I'm very interested in seeing sort of this type of outreach going on and the plan to implement projects to lay the planning foundation for those projects in the future. So thanks for having me.
Thank you, Jack. The next three are Mo Loden, Rich Booth, and Helen Laughlin.
Hi, my name is Mo Loden. I'm with the Alpine Watershed Group. I've got a whole list of watershed areas of concern that are on my to-do list on a regular day basis. I'd say my personal interest lies within the harmful algal bloom monitoring program we have going on in Alpine Watershed, or in Alpine County, related to water quality and public health. That's probably one of my bigger personal watershed areas of concern or interest. And I guess I'll leave it at that and let Rich Booth go next.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rich Booth. I'm retired from the Lahontan Water Board, and I'm participating in the Alpine Watershed Group a bit with Mo on harmful algal blooms. And then my, I guess, question for the folks is if there's any interest in looking at the groundwater dependent ecosystems that are within the Alpine Watershed Group's jurisdiction to see if they're threatened or what kind of shape they may be in. I'd be interested in that. Thanks.
Hi, this is Helen Laughlin. I'm with the Institute for Bird Populations, and I've been working with Alpine Watershed Group and with Julie and her predecessors at American Rivers for a long time on issues related to meadow birds, willow flycatchers, and more recently bumblebee populations. And one of my real interests too is finding that sweet spot on, especially on actively grazed lands, for finding a way that we can have grazing activities, but that still really allow for good recruitment and germination of willows and other riparian vegetation. And I've seen some really kind of cool success stories. So that's just one of the areas I'd like to, you know, spend a little more time working on. But that's about it. I live over in Amador County. I'm just on the other side of the pass.
Great, thank you, Helen. Our next three are Christina Aurelia, Mark and Pat Schwartz, and January Riddle.
I'm getting my technological challenges addressed. It won't let me put myself on video because it keeps going back on. Wait, maybe I'll try it that way. There's always another way to do it, isn't there?
We see you.
There. Okay, and you can hear me too. Hi, everyone. My name is Christine Aurelia. I think I'm the newest Alpine Watershed Group board member. I just joined late in 2020. I am a senior environmental scientist with the Tahoe Conservancy over in South Lake Tahoe for the Tahoe Basin. I'm their landscape conservation coordinator, and right now I'm working pretty much exclusively trying to get a project called the Lake Tahoe West Project out the door. And that is a project that covers forest and watershed restoration on the entire west shore of Lake Tahoe. I think my interest, so I came actually from Humboldt County and Save the Redwoods League. I worked for many years for them on forest and watershed restoration. And I think one of the things that really intrigued me that I found is just how rewarding it was working with ranchers and farmers and foresters. And one of the things that a lot of people thought of as kind of an oxymoron, but we all kind of started to say is like, there really can be such a thing as fish and wildlife friendly cows. And everybody would be like, haven't seen it yet, but it is possible. And I really started to appreciate the kind of the land ethic of the ranchers and farmers that I worked with up in it's kind of some of those rural areas of
of Humboldt and Del Norte and Mendocino counties. And I think I'm just really intrigued with the potential around that and how the Alpine Watershed Group can support more sustainable ranching practices and support those kind of activities. I think one way we could do that, and I don't know, I haven't been with the Watershed Group long enough to really explore the potentiality of this, but maybe open space easements that really help protect the way of life of ranching and the open space that we all cherish and love so much here in the Markleeville, kind of the area here, and I think the area of Alpine County at large. I'm kind of like Mo. I have a really long list. I could go on forever about all the different things that excite me about watershed and ecosystem restoration and the work that we could do. So I won't try and go down through the litany of my list. It definitely includes roads. I'd like to see better road management. And I think there's some real opportunities. There's a lot of expertise in the area that we could tap into around better watershed and restoration management around roads in Alpine County. And I think, you know, the whole issue of, I think, I forget who it was, maybe Rich Booth mentioned, you know, groundwater dependent ecosystems. I think looking at some of, I've just started to see some spots that are like incredibly rich wetlands that would really benefit from some protection and some monitoring. And, you know, it wouldn't take a lot to get some of these spots kind of on the right trajectory. I think, you know, there's always the precautionary principle of do no harm, but there's a lot of good we could do in our capacity here. And it's a tough time for funding. You know, I work for the state. We're gonna have to get really creative. A lot of the money is going to fuels right now. Everybody's so worried about fuels management, but watersheds are a big part of it. We all depend on the water. It's just a critical part of everything that it's life. So, you know, I think there's a lot of good work to be done, and I'll stop at that. So thank you.
And there we go.
We're coming. Oh, that's cool, honey. That's a good effect. Hi, we're Mark and Pat Schwartz. We live on Hot Springs Road here in Markleeville and have for the last 4 years. Wow, that background makes our heads look weird. Anyway, well, you could say our heads look weird anyway. But we are San Jose Transplants, been here about 4 years. We own California Alp Cycling. Wow, now she's headless. That's cool. We own California Alp Cycling, which is a local cycling advocacy company, as I call it. And I also have a blog. I coincidentally am on the Alpine County Chamber of Commerce board and also on the board of directors of the Markleeville Water Company. My suggestion would be to find some common ground. I know we have it, but Kimra and Mo and Ky to work with your group, the Watershed Group, specifically on making sure that our watershed for the water company stays happy, pristine, and all those good adjectives. Nice to see you all here.
Hi.
Well, hi everybody. I'm January Riddle, and I live on Hot Springs Road 2, right next door to Mark and Pat, who are my son and daughter-in-law. And I just moved up from San Diego 2 years ago. I have recently become a member of the Alpine County Board of Supervisors, and my district is District 1. I am really, really interested in meadows, because there is a meadow behind our property, but also because I just see that as such a rich ecological place, and it's a very spiritual place to me. But I wanted to mention that San Diego County is embarking on some of the scientists there are doing some interesting work with seashores and wetlands in assessing the amount of carbon that is being stored in the grounds. And I'm not quite sure, I'm not scientific enough to really know what all that means, but it sounds like a real interesting project. And it was also something that was mentioned in the film. The rancher mentioned something about carbon storage. And I'm wondering if there is any research going on with that kind of idea, carbon storage in meadows and or wetlands next to rivers and streams. I just think that would be maybe something interesting to think about. So I guess it's a question and an interest. Thank you.
Thank you, January. Next up are Katie Smith, Ron Hames, and Cindy Wise.
Hello. So I'm also with Carson Water South Conservancy District. I am kind of new, fairly new. I've only been around for about a month. I am the Watershed Program Technician and a new AmeriCorps member. So yeah, my knowledge of the watershed is very new. I actually just moved to Carson City. But on a personal note, I'm really interested in forest health. And I think that that's, something that can be really, really impactful to the watershed because, it's at the top of the watershed, especially here. So that's something I'm personally excited about, and I'm happy to be here and listening in on everyone else's interests.
Hi, my name is Ron Hames. I'm on the Board of Supervisors, Alpine County, for the last 8 years and reelected for another 4. One of the things that I'm more concerned about is the water in Red Lake. Now, a lot of you know me for a long time. My nickname is Red Lake Ron because I lived up there for so many years, over 40. And so we have an issue with that lake every year now. And it's been quite toxic, and it scares the hell out of me that we're letting that get worse instead of getting it better. So that's one of the biggest things that comes to my mind quite a bit. And then, of course, Indian Creek Reservoir has been affected a little bit, and that has its own challenges. But one of the issues that I'd like to talk a bit about with the Alpine Watershed Group in the future is we have a lot of ditches in our county, and some of those ditches kind of have a plan to be sealed or are cemented in the bottom. And I think you'll find that we need that to replenish the water, groundwater replenishment. Inyo County actually made it a law not to ever cement the bottoms of their ditches because it lets the water doesn't replenish, and that has its own battles with LA Water and Power. But another project I'm sure you guys didn't have on your radar screen, and we have so many more, and you have so many more people to listen to, so I'm going to shut up.
Hi, my name is Cindy Wise, and I'm with the state of California, Lahontan Water Quality Control Board. And overall, for the West Fort Carson in particular, my main interest is broad in the sense of maintaining, restoring, and sustaining the natural functions of the watershed, but at the same time, trying to be respectful of the community, the local culture, the historic and legacy uses of Alpine County. I am excited to hear that so many other people are interested in meadow restoration, working landscapes, things like that. And then also I know several people have mentioned harmful algal bacteria. And I know that's a problem not only in Alpine County, but in a lot of other places around the state. And at the Water Board, we're excited to be adding a new position to our staff that is only going to be focusing on harmful algal bloom issues. That it's still a tall order because geographically we have a big section of the state of California that we're responsible for, but I think it's a start. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Our next three are Ben Ewing, Sally Champion, and Paul, forgive me for how I might mispronounce this, but Paul Fusilier.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. This is Ben Ewing, California Fish and Wildlife, fisheries biologist. Just here to help out wherever I can. Like Ron said, I guess my interest is really in the health of Red Lake and what's going on in Indian Creek reservoirs with the harmful algae blooms going on, and how hopefully we can attack getting them better. Thank you.
Hi, this is Sally Champion. I don't know if my video went on.
It did.
Oh,
Thank
okay.
you.
Yeah, I'm the hydrologist for the Humboldt-Toiyabe National Forest out of Carson City. And as such, as there's a lot of national forest land, as we all know, in Alpine County, I get involved with a wide range of projects. I think I have a strong interest, though, in working on projects to restore stream channel integrity and meadow restoration, especially in our upland watersheds. And the Forest Service here, at least, does not get a lot of funding to pursue that. So it's really been fortunate that I've been able to work with some really strong partners, and I appreciate that. So that's it in a nutshell.
Thank you, Sally.
Okay, good evening, everybody. I'm Paul Fusilier. I'm the Assistant Field Manager for Resources for the Sierra Front Field Office on the Carson District for the Bureau of Land Management. And we manage a little bit of land in Alpine County. You know, the water quality issues that myself and my staff are interested in are, you know, any projects that help improve the Lahontan cutthroat habitat. As well as addressing the algae bloom and water quality issues at Indian Creek Reservoir. In addition to that, I'm really just interested in, you know, where I can and where possible, being an active and collaborative partner in other projects on BLM land or on lands that are associated with BLM lands. And I look forward to see what happens next with this group.
Great, thank you, Paul. We are down to the last three, and I will be turning it back over to Ky. So before I call the last three, I just wanted to say thank you so much to everyone who is here tonight. I am honored and thrilled and happy, and a shout out to Ky for all of the individual outreach she did to help get this group together. And so I'm happy to be starting this conversation, and I look forward to where it goes. And with that, the last three are Carol Behan. This next one, all I can see is Public Barbara S. and then David Griffith.
Hi, everyone. I'm an engineer, restoration engineer with Wildscape Engineering in South Lake Tahoe. Always interested in what Alpine Watershed Group is doing over the hill. I think you guys are great. Main interest, particularly for Alpine Watershed, is how to sustain agricultural practices, water rights, while also integrating wildlife habitat within
that. Public Barbara S.
Good evening. Thank you. Happy New Year. I am a former Douglas County Commissioner in the early 90s, worked on watershed management with several groups. Dan Kaffer and I worked willows in the river. I'm particularly interested in your looking forward issue, having watched the watershed for 40 years, also floodplain management that we are looking to here in the Carson Valley. Thank you. I don't have a camera.
Good to hear your voice, Barbara.
David Griffith. I'm with the Alpine Biomass Collaborative, and in my spare time, I'm an Alpine County supervisor. My primary interest is in, at least with respect to this group, is forest and watershed health. They both go together. You can't have one without the other. And that's what my interest is. Thank you.
All right, was that everybody, Kimra? Was David the last one? Awesome. Okay, wow, I am overwhelmed with the breadth that was just shown through that introductions everybody gave. That was awesome. Once again, if anyone was late, my name is Ky Osguthorpe. I am the Watershed Program Assistant for Alpine Watershed Group. If I were to pick two priorities for me, considering this is looking forward, I think climate change and setting up plans for how we're going to address that, that's one of my key priorities, especially being from Utah, a desert state, watching all the infrastructure plans we're trying to put in right now, and just seeing how dry our future is looking. Climate change would be my first priority. And the second one, which is kind of feels a little ironic to say at this meeting, is I really care about hearing stakeholder voices. And so addressing gaps in those stakeholder voices is another one of my priorities. But with that said, thank you so much to everyone who has given their time to be here, who has offered expertise and thoughts and opinions. And I think we're gonna move in for our last, wow, we are exactly on time with our agenda. For our last 25 minutes, 30 minutes, we're gonna open the floor to discussion. And the three things that I outlined earlier on that we wanna be talking about are how to engage a broad base of stakeholders, who is missing from the table, and then more project ideas, areas of concern regarding watershed health. So options for input, chat box. I'll keep my eye on that. Kimra and Mo will be helping me keep our eyes on that. You can raise your hand. If no one's speaking, unmute yourself. I don't think there's so many of us that it's gonna be a lot of people stepping on each other, but if that is a problem, we'll address that when it comes up. And then if you have something that you'd like to say privately or to one of us, feel free to email post meeting, either Mo, Kimra, or myself. So yeah, we'll go ahead and open the floor. And I just saw somebody with their hand up a moment ago.
It was Dan, and I just wanted you to turn up the volume because I couldn't hear you for a while there. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Can everyone hear me now that I'm done speaking? Okay.
Thank you.
I see that Brenda typed into the chat that as far as stakeholder gaps, Caltrans, and also Friends of Hope Valley. Both of whom, I know we had Caltrans at our September or November meeting, but I think that's one of those groups that it takes constant and persistent communication and invitations. Friends of Hope Valley, I hope we do a pretty good job of staying in communication with.
So this is Rich Harvey, and you know, as I hear, there's an amazing gathering of talented and connected people here this evening. So I'm in awe of that. My concern is that we're less likely to drive our own agenda than we are to be driven by what available funding there is in the form of grants. Mm. And we can be as creative as we want, but if there is no source of grants for us to get the work done, we're really we're kind of stuck. So I wonder how people feel about that. And this, my second point would be, we should probably be collaborating more with other watershed groups. We're all in this together in a time of decreasing funding, and I'd like to see some sort of a summit with other watershed groups about where we all can go as organizations. What are our common goals? So I'll leave it at that.
Well, I will pipe up quickly on the first issue, Rich, as far as being driven by funding. I'll do my executive director plug that all of us expanding and helping to expand the donor base, I think in hard grant times, having individual contributions becomes more and more vital to bridging those gaps. So thank you all of you who are donors, and I think it's spreading the word to other folks. There's a lot of really needy organizations right now, I know that. As far as collaborating more with other watershed groups, I wanted to point out that in the chat, Christine brought up Sierra Meadows Partnership. And while they're not strictly a group of other watershed groups, they're a group of like-minded Sierra Meadows focused groups that I believe bi-monthly have phone calls. And so we staff all try to tune into those and see what's being presented on, and is it something that could help inform our work. And so I would encourage anyone who isn't getting Sierra Meadows Partnership emails to sign up, because it's a really good way to interact with other folks doing similar work.
Can I chime in here? This is Cindy Wise. I also, as far as another stakeholder collaboration, I just wanted to point out, besides the Sierra Meadows Partnership, that the Alpine Watershed Group has been active in the Inyo-Mono Integrated Regional Watershed Management Group. And that is a coalition of some utility, like water, wastewater districts, cities, counties, but there also are other watershed groups in the Taos Sierra, the Taos Sierra Integrated Regional Water Management Group. And then also as a potential funding source, I heard a lot of interest in restoration activities in Indian Creek Reservoir, and we do have a adopted total maximum daily load for that reservoir, which is a general restoration plan to deal with some of the dissolved oxygen issues. But what that does is opens the door to potential US EPA non-point source funding. And so if there are some specific non-point source related kind of projects that anybody had in mind for Indian Creek Reservoir, I think that there's definitely an opportunity there. And then the other potential funding source could potentially be, maybe I'm being optimistic, but I'm sure a lot of people have heard that there's interest in a big infrastructure bill coming down at some point, either federal or state level. And it seems like if the various entities that have responsibilities for roads in the county could sort of coalesce around some potential projects, that could go far in the future and potentially tapping into some of those infrastructure funds that hopefully will be coming. Because right now, as people have mentioned, it seems like all the grants have a big field management focus, but potentially the next big focus will be infrastructure, roads included. So thank you.
Looking at the chat box on the right, I would like to say, so Christina Aurelia mentioned other stakeholder groups who are not represented here, being the Washoe Tribe, ranchers, and large landowners. And I couldn't agree more, which maybe I'll use this moment to pick everyone's brains in the group. I reached out to a few members of the Washoe Tribe, would love to have them at the table. If anyone has any thoughts on the best way to do that or ideas, I think everybody here would like to see more representation from the tribe. Yeah. And if that's a conversation that we want to have here, I would be very happy about it.
Can I add to that? This is Brenda Hunt again. So it's probably really important to have people from the environmental department, but also from the actual, tribal council, or making sure that there's a connection there. I think is somehow critical, or that the environmental folks department could bring it forward to, the tribal body, at any necessary time, just to keep them informed and that type of thing. But there are some, Susan Jamerson and her staff, she's got some new staff that I think, could potentially, come to these meetings or be a part of that at a minimum to at least keep the council informed, the tribal council informed. I'm trying to see if we can, kind of do the same thing, make sure that the tribe is involved in a lot of our stakeholder meetings as well.
Dawn Hittenmiller, did I see your hand go up?
And then Paul also has his hand raised. So
yeah, you did see my hand go up. I hope as the group knows, the governor 4 days ago put another $1 billion out for forest health. And that's what kind of stimulated the Alpine Biomass Collaborative to get going 5 years ago. And I think forest health absolutely, with the current fire situation and the drought situation, is critical, combined with continued usage of the older methodology of ranching, which pretty much predominates most of our meadows in Alpine County at one time or the other, to where they are our reservoirs for our watershed. We did a project last year whereupon I literally watched a pond. I didn't realize, because I was so much in the woods, so busy, that the severity of the drought. But with what I saw in the Reno Gazette a week ago, 10 days ago, that the amount of precipitation that Reno got last year in 2020 was 2.7 inches, which is the biggest drought, second biggest drought they've had since 1888, since they've been measuring precipitation, is critical. And I think it's something that we're all ignoring. We talk about it, we hum around it, we go around left and right, we want to look at a stream bank. I get all that, and that all needs to be done. But that's the easy part of it. I think irrigating the meadows at all levels, and more importantly, our focus needs to drop off the high meadows, which I think you've done a great job with, needs to go down to the 6,000 foot level, where because of the drought, it's extremely severe, reflected in forest health in regards to the beetles. We had a project we thought for sure we were going to get pushed forward 3.5 years ago up in Hope Valley, because it's a premier area. The bottom line is our district ranger basically shut it down in front of us, saying, hey, you need to go down to 6,000 feet and focus at 6,000 feet. And so we did, and so we are. And she's correct. This is where catastrophic fire is going to take place on the east slope at 6,000 feet, much like it has done already on the west slope. It's not 7,000 feet on up, it's here. Focus on where the crisis is first, fix it, then go above.
So this is Paul, and I guess I'll go next. So not meaning to distract from the larger conversation that we're having here, but I have a limited window to put in a funding grant internally within the Bureau of Land Management. And one of those grants I'd like to put in would be to address the water quality at Indian Creek. It's affecting my campground and recreation, and not my campground, but the campground I manage, the recreational opportunities there. So if I could get some assistance with language and some additional partners, I think the potential of getting some funding dollars would actually be pretty high. So perhaps if some people could contact me offline, I'd be willing to have a good conversation, and I look forward to collaborating with some people. Thanks.
Awesome.
Thank you, Paul. Either Kaimo or I will be in contact with you, definitely.
Okay, thanks.
All right.
Sorry, I have another one.
Keep going.
Okay, sorry. So just so you know, CWSD, has a small amount of grant funding, and I know we fund you right now, and I'm assuming you're going to be putting in for funding again. However, there could be the potential for additional funding for a project if you, for instance, had federal funds and you needed matching funds from CWSD because it's non-federal. There is only a limited amount of money. It's not a huge amount, and there is a lot of competition for it. But I know that there's been an interest in doing sort of a watershed wide, or at least from the upper watershed down to the Lahontan Dam, doing a geomorphology and sediment transport study. We have not been able to find funding for that kind of a project, and the reason that we want to do it is basically to look at where are the issues and to help prioritize projects so that we are spending our dollars thoughtfully because there are such limited dollars. But we have been thinking about how could we do something like that and maybe actually phase it, because we're not finding the dollars to do a full study like that. It's just, it would be over $300,000 more than likely. So we, it may be something that, we could talk about offline as well. And it might not be the priority right now, but, something to think about. And maybe even doing, the East Fork one time, the West Fork another time, and trying to cobble some funding together. And maybe you guys know of other sources that might be able to do something like that too. But it's something that we're interested in seeing happen. CWSD is. So thanks.
I'm trying to stay cognizant of maintaining a lull if there's people are waiting to jump in, but I do just want to step in quickly and say there were kind of three things that I wanted us to be able to chat about, or people to be given the opportunity to voice thoughts on. I think people gave project ideas super thoroughly during their introductions. That was awesome. And we've talked, especially in the chat box, about who's not at the table. Sort of the third part of the trifecta of questions I have was how to engage a broad base of stakeholders. And so looking at the old reports and what has been done in the past with USBR WaterSMART grants, there was a lot of tabling, there was a lot of in-person meetings. And so since I have a huge number of local, state, federal agency people in front of me who have worked with the public and are working with the public, if anybody has thoughts, and they don't have to be right now, they can be later if you feel inspired, on how to get the survey or get questions about watershed health, areas of watershed health out to a broader range of community members, I would love to hear them.
I see you have your hand up, Ron. You're also welcome to speak up when you're ready.
Yeah, I didn't want to jump in on anybody, but yeah, there's a few people that were not at this table here. I mean, I'm glad people brought up the Washoe and of course the Caltrans, but we're not talking the recreationists that actually use the river. The fishermen, of course, is a common one that everybody thinks about, but on the East Fork, of course, we have the rafters. It's a seasonal aspect. And of course, the forebuyers that get to the hot springs as well. All of them are impacting that, I'll say some years overuse of that hot springs facilities there, because there is no bathrooms and everybody needs to use the rural aspect of that. And one of the other things that we're not talking about again is, you haven't brought up the Markleeville restoration project, which is a big one. And of course, the one that's going to come in front of our board is going to be continuing the testing for on the testing projects that you have already, and maybe some more in the future. And I'm not going to espouse on that. I'll let you guys do that. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron. Kim or Mo, if you have any responses to that, you certainly know more than I do.
Well, first on the recreationists, that was just the picture perfect segue toward the end of this meeting when Ky was going to announce our next March meeting, which is the next of the forums with the Lahontan Regional Water Quality Control Board on the vision plan, and it's focused on recreation. Now, that plan is just on the West Fork, but I do think that if we're really loud and expand the conversation to the East Fork, that we can get some East Fork conversation going at the same time as we're talking West Fork and satisfying Cindy's requirements for the vision plan. So I just want to encourage everyone, if you have, we have some OHV contacts. I don't think we have a lot of those real Fisher people contacts, but if you have contacts of folks that should be part of that recreation conversation in March, tell them about the meeting, talk to us. Ky will do one-on-one outreach, but as soon as tonight's over, we'll be turning our attention to gearing up for that March meeting. And it would be really helpful to have a lot of broad recreation contacts at that meeting. I don't think I have much response to Ron on the other two. We'll keep talking Markleyville Creek Restoration Project until we get it to happen, but that is definitely the next big project that is on our horizon, I hope, and moving forward.
I'll just speak up because I feel like I saw someone mention the South Lake Tahoe Public Utility District as someone missing from the stakeholder group, and I just think it would kind of tie in nicely with what Ron said, and with also with everyone else's water quality concerns at Indian Creek Reservoir. So, and then additionally, Ron was talking or alluding to the pharmaceuticals and personal care product monitoring program that AWG does. So I think it would be excellent folks to have at the table for a discussion like this, just because they do tie in so well with so many different of our projects. So that's all.
Hi, this is Helen, and I'm on my phone. I don't see where to do the raising hands thing, so I'm sorry if I'm jumping in front of somebody. And I had to step away a little bit at the beginning of this session, so I hope I'm not repeating something that was already said, but I was thinking too about contact with some of the homeowners groups up in the Kirkwood area, because I know that is part of your area of emphasis, and there's potentially some projects there, but also a potential resource too for getting opinion and input and other aspects of that user group that we might want to reach out to.
Thank you, Helen. And one thing I will add, Ky, you did such a great job of briefing everyone on this USBR WaterSMART grant. A little more backstory on our purview. Ky mentioned all 5 watersheds. So my predecessor wrote the grant application, and when it was written, it was just for the Carson River. And one of the things that we asked U.S. Bureau of Reclamation if we could do is expand it to include all 5 watersheds. But we had the same amount of grant money, so we knew we couldn't do the same level of planning. So what we got them to agree to is that this restoration plan will build off of CWSD's stewardship plan and the vision plan process and really go in depth on the West Fort Carson. We'll also try to go more in depth on the East Fort Carson, since that's not covered in the vision plan. But for the other 4 watersheds, for the Upper Truckee, the Stanislaus, the McCullumney, and the South Fork American, it's really more about that gap analysis, kind of us prioritizing what we don't know and what we need to do next. Because we simply can't dive as deep with the finite amount of funds, but it's kind of our first step to really being more of a county-wide watershed group like we are in our mission, but we tend to focus mostly on the Carson.
All right, are there any more comments, questions, thoughts, additions? Yes.
It's Rich Harvey again. You know, one of our very small drainages is into Lake Tahoe itself. And I've always wondered if the, say the League to Save Lake Tahoe would be interested in working with us on monitoring the Upper Truckee River. That is just outside of Alpine County. Not that, I don't know that that matters, but there's homes along the river there. You know, the very beginning of the watershed is in Alpine County. And there's a big interest and money in preserving water quality in Lake Tahoe. So that may be something we could look at.
All right, I'll give it just a second to see if anyone pipes up. I don't see any hands raised. Yeah, but there's no problem with ending a few minutes early. Any last thoughts, anyone?
Dan, did you have a question?
Thank you. I just think it's amazing the diversity of people that are here and organizations, and the watershed is so big and it's so diverse that every time there's an opportunity for a project, if we can all partner on them, there's just so much more we can do. Over my career, I've seen people with severe fire hazard problems, and we used those fuels to do river restoration, and one project helped pay for another. I believe Avery and some of the other ranchers are using the USDA NRCS EQIP program on private lands for grazing management and meadow restoration. I don't know what the status is at Charity Valley, but we should follow up on that. But with every project that we do, be it biomass or whatever, I think we should all work together and use each other's monies and time and labor and energy and expertise to leverage so we can get more out of what few dollars there are out there. Thank you.
Stan. All right, last call. All right, so again, huge thank you to everybody for logging on tonight. It's a little bit easier. There's some pros to doing Zoom call. You don't have to leave your house, but the cons, obviously, it's kind of difficult to manage 30 different people on a Zoom chat. So thanks for bearing with us, everyone, and thanks for showing up and sharing your ideas. And we hope to work with you more going forward. So again, if you haven't taken the survey, it's on our website on the right-hand column, easily accessible, bolded, capitalized. So you should be able to find it fairly easily. We'd love to hear from you. I did take notes on all of your ideas that you said tonight, so we have those in writing as well. And then Kimra already announced this, but I'll make the announcement one more time that our next Watershed Group meeting is going to be Tuesday, March 9th from 5:30 to 7 p.m. And it's going to be on recreation and its impacts on the watershed. So again, everyone who has contacts in recreation, we'd love to get in touch with them, and we hope to see you all there. And again, thanks for coming, everybody. Have a good night.
Good job. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Thanks. Good night.
Thank you. Good job.
Thank you.
Good night.
Ky and Kimra, I say